Looking back, Han Li couldn't help but give a knowing smile. In the half-year that Han Li spent with Jiang Tai, because their personalities matched well with each other, the two had naturally become very close friends. Han Li slowly stood from his cross-legged position and rubbed his calves. After sitting in the cross-legged position and meditating for a long time, his legs had become numb, and even some of his bloodstreams felt clogged. After kneading them for some time, his legs returned back to their normal state. Standing up, Han Li dusted himself in his usual custom before exiting the stone chamber. Turning his head back to look at the stone chamber used for cultivation, Han Li couldn't help but sneer at himself. This entire chamber was made of solid granite while the doors were made of a giant piece of crocidolite. If a normal human wanted to break into this room, he or she would need to spend at least 3 hours hacking at the doors with an enormous axe. TL, crocidolite, https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/rebekite. In the Seven Mysteries sect, only the sect leader, elders, and division heads were allowed to use this type of silent cultivation chamber. Not even inner disciples were allowed to use them as they pleased. This cultivation chamber was created for those practicing profound cultivation techniques to guard their practice against any external disruption and in order to prevent Qigong deviation. Han Li didn't know what methods Dr. Mo had used, but the sect somehow granted him the usage of his own personal cultivation stone chamber, built into the side of the cliff of the God Hand Valley. TL, Qigong deviation is when cultivation goes awry. After the cultivation chamber was built, Dr. Mo had assigned it for Han Li's sole use. Seeing such a gift, Han Li couldn't help but feel humbled by Dr. Mo's benevolence. Dr. Mo's treatment of Han Li was perhaps too good to be true. Ever since Han Li had become his official apprentice, Dr. Mo had personally dipped into his own supply of herbs for Han Li to consume. Not only that, Dr. Mo also created an unknown medicinal bath for him to soak his body in. Han Li didn't know what types of herbs were being used, but as he watched Doctor carefully refine those herbs, his normally impassive face revealed a hint of reluctance. Even Han Li could figure out that these herbs were extremely valuable. Clearly, these benefits were extremely useful to him, causing Han Li's cultivation speed to increase severalfold. Han Li had recently succeeded in mastering the first layer of the mysterious formula chant imparted to him by Dr. Mo. During his process of breaking through, his meridians had nearly ruptured several times and he had suffered from some moderate internal injuries. But thanks to Dr. Mo's expertise in the healing arts, the injuries to his meridians were easily repaired, and with the aid of the medicinal herbs, Han Li did not suffer from any serious permanent damage. Every time Han Li was even slightly injured, Dr. Mo would become even more worried than Han Li himself. This worry manifested itself the entire time he treated Han Li, making Dr. Mo very tense. It was only when Han Li's injuries began recovering that he let out a sigh of relief. Dr. Mo's concern went far beyond that of a normal relationship between master and disciple and caused Han Li to feel a little uneasy about the situation. If it were not for his third uncle or the fact that no one ever walked out from these valleys, Han Li would have thought that Dr. Mo was actually his long-lost relative based on the attention that he had been showing to Han Li. TL, the author did not make it clear how Han Li's third uncle prevented him from thinking this. Walking out of the cultivation chamber, Han Li lazily stretched his body and walked away from the cliff. After he had become an official disciple, Han Li and Jiang Tai moved from their original quarters into their own personal house. As he passed by Jiang Tai's room, Han Li shot a glance inside. As it turns out, Jiang Tai wasn't inside. Han Li thought that he was probably by the Crimson Water Peaks waterfall, cultivating his new martial arts technique. After the examination, Dr. Mo instructed Han Li to continue practicing the oracular formula chant and refused to teach him any martial arts. However, in an attempt to pacify Han Li, Dr. Mo personally instructed Han Li in the art of healing without holding anything back. Whenever Han Li had a question about medicine, Dr. Mo would answer right away, even going as far as allowing Han Li to look through the various books in Dr. Mo's library to find an answer to his question. As for Jiang Tai, Dr. Mo fulfilled his previous promise and imparted a set of martial arts to him. The martial arts Jiang Tai practiced was extremely peculiar. According to Dr. Mo, it was an extremely obscure branch of martial arts named the Way of the Armored Elephant. Even the name of this particular martial art was rarely heard of, let alone the existence of practitioners who actually cultivated it. It differed from the martial arts of regular practitioners in Jiang Hu. Generally, the progression of cultivation for normal martial arts ranged from easy to difficult. As the level increased, so would the difficulty. Thus, the higher the level, the more effort it would take for one to achieve a breakthrough. Zhang Tai's particular martial art style was divided into 9 layers, with the initial 3 layers being the easiest to cultivate, following the same principle as normal martial arts. However, starting from the 4th layer, the difficulty of breaking through was increased to a monstrous level in addition to suffering the excruciating backlash caused by practicing the way of the armored elephant. Many cultivators of this set of martial arts could not bear such excruciating pain and would stop their progression at the 4th level. Not to mention the 5th level nor the 6th level, the excruciating pain would only increase with each level. TL, Jiang Hu equals World of Martial Artists. After breaking through from the 6th layer into the 7th, there would be no further bottlenecks, and cultivation would be much smoother. The only drawback was that the cultivator would need to suffer from monthly bouts of intense pain. This intimidated many people who desired to cultivate the way of the armored elephant. This particular branch of martial arts was slowly dying out. This martial arts style was very peculiar. When it reached a high enough level, its strength would become truly astounding. It was said that those who reached the 9th layer had bodies as tough as gemstones. They were impervious to all weapons, even fire and water. Even palm strike, fist techniques, and legendary swords and sabers wouldn't be able to injure them. But what made people most envious was that after cultivating this branch of martial art, practitioners would gain the tremendous strength of an elephant. After reaching a high enough level, their strength would be limitless. They were capable of catching live wolves and ripping tigers apart, as well as other unparalleled feats. Those who had heard of this style both feared and adored it. Other than the creator of this martial art, there was no other individual who had managed to cultivate it to the 9th layer. Legend has it that the creator of this martial art was born without the sense of pain. That was the reason why he was able to create such a perverse martial art and execute it to its greatest potential. Although Dr. Mo had explained the benefits and consequences in its entirety to Zhang Tai had no concerns about the harm it could bring to his body. He coveted the strength the way of the armored elephant could bring him and promised right away to cultivate in this style of martial arts. Without even looking for another style suitable to him, Zhang Tai had already reached the peak of the 1st layer in 2 months. In order to break through the 1st layer of the way of the armored elephant, Dr. Mo had suggested that every afternoon, Zhang Tai should go to the Crimson Water Peaks waterfall and cultivate under the impact of the surging waters. According to Zhang Tai, this method really did have a godly effect. The difference between the peak of the 1st layer to the 2nd layer was only paper thin, and as long as he worked a little harder, he would break through the bottleneck with relative ease. Han Li slowly followed the path from the God Hand Valley out of force of habit. His steps automatically carried him towards the Crimson Water Peak. He did not have anything important to do at the moment, and as such, he followed his normal schedule and visited Zhang Tai, who was training at the Crimson Water Peak. Zhang Tai grimaced in pain, allowing the impact of the waterfall to temper his body as he cultivated the way of the armored elephant. Not everyone could withstand the torturous pain from cultivating this particular martial arts. Even the 1st layer already required one to suffer excruciating pain. To reach the 9th layer, wouldn't it require one to cultivate to the point of insanity, losing their skin in the process? I wonder if Zhang Tai already regrets his previous decision. The excruciating torture one had to endure to practice the way of the armored elephant is impossible to imagine, Han Li thought as he walked, carelessly kicking the fallen leaves and branches that were blocking his way. Maybe after a few more days, the two of us will go and beg Dr. Mo for another martial arts skill for Zhang Tai so that he won't need to suffer from excruciating pain each time he practices. Having absorbed himself in thought trying to think of methods to allow Zhang Tai to escape from this tortuous path of practice, Han Li slowly roused himself to look at his surroundings. Han Li tilted his head as he gazed at the line of trees by his side. Currently, the year was approaching the late stages of autumn. The trees' branches were all naked and devoid of leaves. Piles of sticks and dead leaves layered the small paths. Walking on them felt like walking on cotton. Han Li found this experience extremely comfortable. In that moment, the sounds of weapons clashing drifted over from a nearby mountain peak, as well as the many loud cheers. After hearing the noises, Han Li glanced in the direction of the mountain peak, annoyed that his good mood had been disturbed. The noise came from disciples of the 100 Forge Division. They were training the disciples selected to join their division in the various arts of weaponry. Every time Han Li saw other sect members gathering and undergoing their training sessions, slight hints of jealousy surfaced in his heart. He wanted to wield a real weapon and demonstrate his skills as well. What a waste. After he officially became a disciple under Dr. Mo, he had been strongly forbidden from practicing such things. Dr. Mo strongly emphasized that Han Li was to devote all of his time to the nameless oracular chant. Therefore, Han Li could only stare with wide and envious eyes. Occasionally, to scratch his itch, he would borrow a few weapons from some of the other sect members he was on good terms with and practice with them. How truly useful was it to cultivate the mysterious chant? Up until now, Han Li had not seen any positive effects of his constant cultivation. Other disciples had already strengthened their body and mastered impressive martial art techniques. If the path of martial arts was compared to a marathon, Han Li was certain that he had remained at the starting point and hadn't advanced in the least. Even Jiang Tai, who had cultivated for 2 months, had some beneficial changes to show for his efforts. His skin and muscles had become tougher, and his level of strength was also noticeably higher than before. However, if Dr. Mo had not accepted Jiang Tai as an unofficial disciple, he would not have passed the unofficial disciple test 2 months ago. If he had not passed the test, then staying on the mountain would be impossible, let alone sending money back home. If Jiang Tai was unable to cultivate another branch of martial arts, his path would be forever sealed. On one hand, Han Li was grumbling about the unfairness of their situation. On the other hand, he was reassuring himself that since he passed Dr. Mo's test, he would not be kicked out of the 7 Mysteries sect. Han Li retracted his gaze from the other sect members, but he continued to think about Dr. Mo's irritating commands. Distracted and in low spirits, he gazed at the 2 lines of trees alongside the road as pangs of dejection struck him. All of a sudden, Han Li sucked in a mouthful of cool air, his facial expression turning ugly. Out of reflex, he squatted down and used both his hands to tightly clamp on the big toe of his right foot, doubling over in the grass. A sudden, painful flare-up had caught Han Li unaware. His face became a pale white as waves of fiery pain assailed his right foot. Evidently, Han Li had accidentally kicked against an extremely hard object hidden in the piles of leaves. Han Li arched his body and used both of his hands to wrap around his foot. After he lowered his head and removed his shoes, he began to blow heavily on his injured toe. While his brain flooded with pain, he was worried that his swollen toe might have been injured to an extent that would impact his day-to-day activities. After a long moment, Han Li craned his neck and peered downwards to that pile of leaves, trying to find the ungodly, dastardly stone that caused him to be injured. Haphazardly lying about, the fallen leaves were all the same reddish-yellow color. They obscured him from finding the target he sought. Han Li wrinkled his forehead and surveyed the ground before finding a slightly long and thick tree branch. Holding the branch, he stood up carefully. Unwilling to give up, Han Li used the branch in his hands and continued to probe piles of leaves. He spotted an object the size of a fist. Han Li paused momentarily and considered the object in front of him. The culprit, the sinful object that caused injury to his great self, actually had the shape of an elongated bottle. The surface of it was stained with mud, and its original color was impossible to discern. Overall, it looked extremely commonplace. Initially, Han Li thought that this was an ordinary little bottle, but in his hands, the bottle was extraordinarily heavy, its weight vastly different from that of a normal porcelain bottle. Could this bottle be made of gold? No wonder it caused so much pain when he kicked it. But bottles made of gold were rarely seen. Made of gold? Han Li's interest in this bottle peaked as he temporarily forgot about the waves of pain arising from his toe. As Han Li wiped off the excess layer of mud, the original color of the bottle began to unveil itself. The bottle emanated a shiny green glow, and there were intricate black-green leaf patterns engraved on its surface. At the head of the bottle, there was a bottle cap that tightly sealed the mouth of the bottle. Could the interior be hiding something precious? Han Li placed the bottle close to his ear and gently shook the bottle, but he didn't feel any movements from the inside of the bottle. Unwilling to give up, Han Li placed his hands on the cap of the bottle and tried to pry it open. However, no matter how hard he tried, it was to no avail. Curiosity was burning in his heart, and just when he was about to use another method to open it, the pain from his foot suddenly flared up again. Damn! He had forgotten that the toe of his right leg had been injured after coming into contact with the porcelain bottle. Looking at his injury, it seemed he could not visit Zhongtai today. Han Li decided to return to his residence and apply some medicine on his injured toe before taking his time to figure out the secrets this mysterious bottle was holding. In order to keep the bottle from being spotted by others, Han Li stashed it inside his robes regardless of how dirty the bottle was. Turning back, he limped step by step back to his home. Han Li didn't meet many people on the way back except for a few senior disciples who were curious at why Han Li was limping his way back. But because he didn't say anything, they didn't pay much attention to him. As he returned back to his room, the pain in his toe got increasingly unbearable. Han Li sat on his bed and took off his shoes to examine his injury. The swelling was incredible. His right toe had an impressive bulge on it, while the cuticle on his toe turned blood red and resembled a big chili. Han Li quickly took out a bottle of herbs from beneath his pillow. Concocted meticulously by Dr. Mo, this medicine sped up blood clotting to an astonishing degree. Dr. Mo didn't easily give away medicine of this caliber. It was originally meant for Zhongtai, who would inevitably suffer an injury while practicing the way of the armored elephant. Han Li didn't think that he would be the first to use the medicine. Opening the medicinal bottle, a strong herbal fragrance filled the room. He applied a small amount on his injury and immediately felt a relaxing sensation. Just as Dr. Mo had said, it had an immediate effect. Elder Mo's medicine was truly amazing. Han Li took a clean cloth and wrapped up his foot before putting his shoes back on. Excellent. The pain was slowly subsiding. He began to take small steps, as if testing his pain threshold, nodding in satisfaction as he felt that moving was easier than before. Now, it was time to solve the enigma posed by the mysterious bottle that had caused such an injury to him. Han Li took out the bottle from his robes and wiped it clean to restore its natural luster. This bottle wasn't all that big, and a single hand could wrap around the entire length of its neck. It was actually smaller than the bottle that contained Dr. Mo's medicine. The bottle had a shiny green luster and was engraved with a dark green leaf pattern that seemed almost alive. When Han Li felt the contours of the designs on the surface of the bottle, it was almost as if there were actual leaves embedded onto the bottle itself. Weighing the bottle in his hand, Han Li had no idea what type of metal was used to make this bottle, or if it was even porcelain. The bottle didn't have a cold, metallic feeling to it, nor did it have the gloss of porcelain. Han Li had observed the bottle for a good while, and the only thing he could be certain of was that he didn't know what material was used to make it. The shade of green seemed intrinsically part of the material itself, not a color that was added after it was made. Seeing how tightly the bottle was sealed, Han Li naturally became curious. Eyeing the bottle, he strongly desired to see whether or not there was something inside. Once more using his strength, he tried to pry open the cap of the bottle. 1 try, 2 tries, 3 tries. It was as if the cap of the bottle was fused into the neck. It was almost as if it was refusing to move. Han Li was astounded. Back when he first picked up the bottle, due to waves of pain assailing him, he couldn't use his full strength to open it and didn't realize how stubborn the bottle was. But now that Han Li had finished tending to his foot and was using his full strength, he was surprised that he could still not pry open the bottle. Han Li tried to twist the lid once more until his arms began to ache, but there was still no success, so he had no choice but to stop. He stretched and loosened his arms, moving his wrist about. Just now, he had expended a large amount of energy to open the bottle, and his efforts had strained his wrist. Holding the bottle under his eye, he began to inspect it even closer. Unfortunately, there was no secret mechanism under the lid that would allow him to easily open it. This made Han Li frustrated. He wasn't able to open the bottle, so how would he know if there was something inside or not? If it was sealed up this tightly, then there was definitely something precious inside. Han Li held the bottle tightly in his hand, looking at it with a vacant look. In the end, he had decided that he would let Zhongtai, who was many times stronger than him, give it a try and see if he could open it. He knew that the current Zhongtai could easily lift over 10 buckets of water up and down the mountains as if it was nothing. These days, it was Jiang Tai who refilled the water in the huge water tank every day. After he decided, Han Li headed towards Jiang Tai's place, hoping that he would return soon. Waiting for someone was truly unpleasant. Han Li felt that time was passing by extremely slowly. Finally, after waiting for a long time, a creaking sound was heard as Jiang Tai pushed open the door. Looking up, Han Li saw that Jiang Tai was wearing only a thin piece of clothing. His entire body was steaming as he perspired freely. Han Li knew that this was the result of his cultivation, so he didn't find it strange. Seeing as Han Li was already in his house waiting for him, Jiang Tai was stunned. But before Jiang Tai could say anything, Han Li impatiently thrust the bottle towards him. "Brother Jiang, please lend me your assistance and help me open this bottle." "Where did you find this? It looks rather nice," Jiang Tai remarked as he took the bottle. Z. TL note, sound of twisting bottle. This bottle is so tightly sealed. It's so hard to pry it open. What was used to make this? Jiang Tai cut straight to the chase. He wasn't able to open the bottle either. "Gah! I can't do it, this bottle won't open. Why don't you find a senior disciple to help you?" Jiang Tai shook his head apologetically and handed the bottle back to Han Li along with the suggestion. "Even you can't open this?" Han Li was getting more anxious and couldn't help but pace around the room. What happened to your leg?" Jiang Tai inquired as he noticed Han Li's foot. "It's nothing, I kicked a rock on the road." Han Li didn't know why, but he didn't want to tell Jiang Tai about his surprise encounter with the bottle just yet. Right now, he wanted to keep the bottle his own personal secret. Han Li was feeling very disappointed in his heart. He didn't want to sit around and chat with Jiang Tai at the moment, and after briefly asking about how his cultivation was progressing, Han Li immediately left the room and returned back to his own place to think of a way to resolve his personal problem. Returning back to his room, Han Li put the bottle on the table and stared intensely at it. At the same time, his mind was trying to think of solutions to open the mysterious bottle. Pung! Han Li tightly grasped the bottle with his hands, and with anger in his eyes, used his entire strength to smash the bottle against the table. "If I can't use my own body's strength, then I shall use other means to break it open," decided Han Li after thinking of numerous ways to open the vexing bottle. Han Li had long since figured out that using brute strength and violence was not a solution. This type of method, although simplistic and crude, was usually the most effective. But the moment he thought of that beautiful bottle with its mysterious and intricate designs being smashed into smithereens, Han Li could feel a dull ache in his heart pulling him back, causing him to be extremely unwilling to let go of such a beautiful treasure. If there were any other methods to open the mysterious bottle, Han Li would choose those instead of using brute force. If he asked the other senior disciples for help, they might be able to open it, but Han Li had unknowingly started to treat the mysterious bottle as a treasured item and was extremely reluctant to let others know of its existence. The current Han Li was almost driven to insanity by his curiosity regarding the mysterious bottle. Although he knew that it might just be an empty bottle, he was still willing to bet that the bottle was protecting something precious. The more he was unable to open the bottle, the more his curiosity grew. If he couldn't solve the mystery inside the bottle, then he would never be able to sleep well at night. After he decided on his course of action, Han Li stealthily sneaked in a tool shed, selected a small iron hammer from the multitude of tools lying about there, and brought the hammer back to his residence. I know this might be confusing. Wielding a hammer requires body strength, and Han Li previously said he wasn't going to rely on his body's strength. However, wielding a tool is viewed differently from using one's own strength because it adds a certain mechanical advantage that can accomplish what the body is unable to do. Back in his house, Han Li pried half a brick from a corner in his room and placed the bottle on top of the brick. Han Li raised the hammer with his right hand, and swiftly smashed down onto the bottle's body. Pung! Afraid of using too much strength and accidentally smashing whatever was inside, Han Li used only a fraction of his strength in order to test the bottle's hardness. Only after inspecting the bottle and finding that it was undamaged did Han Li relax. He started increasing the amount of strength he used in each strike. Pung! 50% strength. Pung! 70% strength. Pung! 100% strength. Pung! 120% strength. Han Li exerted more and more of his strength into each hammer blow. As the motions of his arms got more and more frantic, the speed of the blows grew faster and faster. Even after he had cracked the brick underneath, the bottle laid there innocently without a single scratch on its surface. Han Li was dumbstruck, unable to comprehend the hardness of the bottle. Using his hands to feel its surface, there were no traces of damage. That glossy green surface remained unblemished without any signs of Han Li's furious attempts. This was completely beyond Han Li's expectations. Han Li was absolutely certain now that this bottle was made from an unusual material. There was a 90% possibility that this item was lost by someone of a high status. The owner may have already sent people to comb the mountainside in search for this mysterious object. If Han Li wanted to keep it, he had to be sure to hide it in an extremely secretive location and not let others know of its existence. In his heart, Han Li followed the philosophy of finders, keepers, losers, weepers. As long as one did not obtain the item by stealing or robbing, to Han Li, the item obtained was his by right. If it was some ordinary item, Han Li might have been willing to return it back to the owner, but this mysterious bottle? Not a chance. Looking at the bottle, he surmised that this item had most likely been misplaced by either some rich kid from a big family or someone with a high status. Sadly, Han Li did not have any good impression of people from both of these categories. Since childhood, Han Li was from an extremely poor family. Despite working very hard and living like dogs, they were often unable to afford to have a full meal. In the Seven Mysteries sect, there were two types of people. The first type were those who threw their money about, wasting it on decadent luxury. They treated money as if it were water, spending it freely and without concern. Every time Han Li saw this, an uncomfortable feeling of rage would rise in his heart. The second type of people were those who looked down on the disciples who were born in rural villages. They would often abuse the less fortunate with scathing words and malicious actions. If there so happened to be any conflict between them and the villagers, however small the conflict was, the second type of person would usually form into groups and beat up the poorer kids. Han Li himself had his fair share of abuse. He had been beaten up by the rich kids until his face was swollen and he was unable to get up from bed. Han Li had to rest for a few weeks in order to fully recover. As for those within the sect that possessed both money and status, Han Li also did not have good impressions of them. A good example was Protector Wang. Despite accepting his third uncle's bribes, Protector Wang did nothing to aid Han Li when he was taking the test. Instead, Protector Wang had been biased towards Wu Yan. Despite the fact that Han Li did not have the chance to see many of the grand figures residing in the sect, their image had long been tarnished by the actions of Protector Wang. Whenever these two types of people lost their belongings, Han Li had no intentions of returning the items. He would even prank them by hiding the items in obscure locations. After thinking of this, Han Li decided to remove the pouch which always hung upon his neck. His mother had personally sewn the pouch out of water-resistant leather. Inside the pouch was a good luck charm made from the tooth of a wild boar. His mother hoped this would protect him from danger and illnesses. Han Li opened his pouch and hid the mysterious bottle alongside his good luck charm. He then swiftly sealed the pouch and placed it around his neck. After doing so, he surveyed his surroundings. Luckily, there was no one who had seen him or the mysterious bottle. After taking so many precautions, Han Li felt more secure and threw away all of his concerns that the owner would discover the object and take it from him. Han Li stealthily replaced the hammer in the tool shed and casually walked back to God Hand Valley. As he limped back to his residence, night had fallen.